Hi there everybody, welcome to another video. On today's video I have this BMW 320i. This is a 2014 model and it's a petrol engine. I'm going to be changing the oil and the oil filter. I'm also going to show you how to top up some screen wash fluid, and also we're going to check the coolant level and percentage of antifreeze. So just before I get on, I've got my screen wash fluid here. I would recommend buying the proper screen wash fluid, concentrated, already mixed, and pour it in here. This is where it goes. I've already filled mine. It's quite nice and full, so that is done. The reason you want to use the proper fluid is because if you just put water in there in winter, that water can freeze, expand and crack your tank, or it just won't come out the jets and it won't wash your windscreen, which is what you need it for. And the other reason is also sometimes people mix water with washing up liquid, which is not a good idea either. It becomes very foamy and it just makes a mess. So just buy the proper stuff. It's cheap enough. You can keep a 5-liter bottle in the boot of the car and top it up as required. Next, we're gonna check the coolant level and percentage of antifreeze. I've got this little gadget here to use to check the antifreeze. Coolant is here. Now this car has been running a lot, so I'm just gonna be careful when opening this slowly while pushing it down to release any pressure. So be really careful. Obviously, if your car is really hot like this one, if it's cold, it's okay, you can open it, but if it is hot, you risk obviously burning yourself really badly. Now I'm just gonna get a light. So I just want to shine a light in there to show you that there is some fluid in there. You can see the fluid sort of looking down there, bluish, greenish. If there was no fluid on this tank at all, it would look like this basically. So we already know we got some fluid, but inside of here you have a sort of a level that you can just check. Those two like circles there, there are two like curved arrows, and that's pretty much our level there, and that is where my coolant is, and that level is more or less around here. It's just around this where this tank is sort of fused, the bottom from the top. So the level for me, it's fine. If you found that there was no coolant there at all, then that's when you want to be concerned that there might be a leak somewhere and that you are losing coolant. Then we can use this little gadget, suck some of the coolant. You can see the coolant is nice and clean. It looks sort of bluish in color, slight hint of green there, but more bluish, and it's saying -30. So that means this will freeze at -30 or -35. So we're good here in the UK. However, if you are in, I don't know, the North Pole, you may need more antifreeze. You want it below -50 or more even. So, and if you're in a very hot country, obviously you don't need it. You don't have to have that much antifreeze, but you still want to have some antifreeze because the antifreeze actually has agents to protect the engine from corrosion. So it's not only not to freeze, but it's also protecting your engine. So just that common sense there. Then we can close this where the arrows match, and we're pretty much done with that. Now we're going to move into the oil and oil filter, and I've got my oil filter right here. Just going to show you which one it is. Actually, I threw the box away already, but this is a Hengst oil filter. It's an E61H. You can see it up there maybe, but I would recommend always getting the parts for your car according to your registration, that way, or chassis, that way you get the correct parts for your car. So let's start by opening this oil filler cap here. We're gonna leave it there. And this tool here, which is of size 8616, it's like a big socket, oil filter socket, or also goes by S40, S80. Fits there, we can open that. So get a ratchet and open your filter. It shouldn't be too tight. It should be just, it usually gets tightened to something like 25 Newton meters, which isn't a lot of force. Just want to be careful there. A little bit of oil came out, but you just want to lift it a bit more careful. Let the oil drain in so it doesn't come out. Leave it there for a few seconds till it drains. Right, once it's been there a few minutes, we can get it out. That's our filter there. Sometimes it comes out with that, but clearly not today. So I'm gonna dispose of that. This is a Malay one, by the way. The one I have is a Hengst one. Anyway, we're gonna leave that open, and this just allows some air into the system while we drain the oil from underneath. And we're gonna give this a little clean as well. I'm gonna change the O-rings on this while the oil is draining. But if you're working outside in the exposed atmosphere, try to cover this with something so you don't have any dirt or things going in there, any leaves, or if it's windy, the leaves and the things can easily go in there, so you don't want that. So just cover it. Anyway, I'm gonna get the car up now. So looking at the car from underneath, we have the sun plug bolt right here. It's a 17 mil, and with my 17 mil we're going to crack that open, and also make sure you have an oil pan to catch the oil, and take the sun plug bolt out. Just remember the oil can be very hot as well, so be careful not to burn yourself if the car was hot to start with. Otherwise you can just warm up the car a little bit, and so it won't be too hot. Now there's our sun plug bolt with a copper washer. We can let that drain. In the meantime, we're gonna change the copper washer on the sun plug bolt, get a new one. It comes in the kit, and then we have our new oil filter there, and we also have a new O-ring. So I'm just rinsing the oil filter housing there with some brake cleaner. Brake cleaner really rinses the oil really well, and it dries really quickly as well, so it doesn't remain in there, so it doesn't contaminate the filter once you get it back in. But at least you can clean your housing, and you have the two little O-rings there. Well, one big O-ring, one small O-ring. Now I'm just gonna get a pick tool so we can tackle the O-rings, take the old ones out. So that's the bigger one. We can dispose of that, and then we have the little one. Be careful not to injure yourself while trying to remove this little O-ring. It can be a little bit tricky. So if you have a tool that is pointy like mine, make sure you don't stab yourself. And then go ahead and put your new O-rings there in the correct grooves. And then we are also going to add a little bit of multi-purpose grease to this O-ring. You can also use just a bit of the oil that you're going to use in the car. So open your oil and with your finger, just dip your finger in and get a little bit of oil and put it around the O-ring. I just normally, I have a pot of multi-purpose grease, so that's what I use. And so that is done, and now we can push our new filter in, and so that is ready to go back once we get the car down. That part there is not used for this particular car. Sometimes it's used on other models, so you don't need it. Now we can put our sun plug bolt back in. You can see that the oil is still dripping a little bit. You can leave it dripping a little bit longer if you wanted to, but in my case I just need to put get the car back out. So put the bolt back on, and then I have a torque wrench here, and I'm going to torque this to 30 Newton meters. And with that torqued, we are ready to let this car. It's time to put our filter back. Also make sure you rinse on the area, so make sure it's nice and clean as you found it. Now we're going to lower the car, and we can put our filter back to start with, just to make sure it's going in the correct way. So it's going to get harder and harder, because once we reach the O-ring, then it's difficult to do it by hand. But at least you've known you were able to screw it on a little bit by hand, so you're not cross-threading anything. And now we can use our tool to tighten that. And if you read up here, it says 25.5 Newton meters. So you can use your torque wrench to tighten that to 25 Newton meters. I don't really use my torque wrench that much on this, because I do so many all the time that you sort of become used to the force to apply. Anyway, also we can top up some oil. So I was looking at some technical books which show this engine takes 5 liters of oil, and the manual actually doesn't tell you the oil capacity. It just tells you to have your oil change at the garage. I'm using 5W40 here, ACE A3V4 as recommended, also on the manual. You can also use 5W30 or 0W30, 0W40. All of those are recommended. It a little bit depends on the temperature of where you live. So thinner oil if you're in a hot country, slightly thicker oil if you're in a colder environment. Sorry, the other way around. Thinner oil if you're in a cold environment, and maybe slightly thicker oil if you're in a hot environment. So now I'm gonna pour that in there, 5 liters of it. Right, got my 5 liters in there. I would probably recommend using something like castor oil, maybe better. Depends how much you love your engine. This particular car gets serviced every year, and it only does about 4,000 miles. So it always has clean engine. So we do use this oil, which is a little bit cheaper, but it's always changed. So from that point of view, it's still okay. But Castrol, probably more expensive, but also if you do more miles and whatnot, maybe better oil to use. Anyway, so we got our oil in there. There is no dipstick in this car, so we have to check the oil level in the computer of the car. And to do that, you have to get the car running and get it up to a certain temperature. But now we'll get it started anyway. Make sure everything is running Okay, and I usually like to recap what we've done. So we tightened the sun plug bolt 35 Newton meters. We got our filter back on, and we got 5 liters of oil in and close the oil filler cap. So with that recapped, we can start the car and make sure we don't get any oil warning lamps coming up here. If there is, then you can switch the engine off. So that started okay, it's running sweet, no issues here, and that's pretty much it. I mean, if you really wanted to, you can have a quick look underneath, make sure there's no any obvious oil leaks, but apart from that, this is pretty much all that is required to do an oil change in this car. So having said that, I hope the video helps. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe. We'll see you all in the next video. So thank you for watching. Just quickly, I forgot to mention, if you want to measure the engine, the oil capacity, if you go to menu here, it will take you to that menu there, and if you go to vehicle information, select that and go to vehicle status, obviously you navigate with this little wheel, and then you press the wheel to select what you want, and then you go to engine oil level and measure engine oil level, select that, and once the car is warm, so I left the car running for a while, it's at about what, I don't know, 78 90 degrees or so, or 80 something. I pressed cancel. Go to, if the car is not warm enough, you won't be able to select that. So now I can start measuring, and now it's gonna start measuring, so that may take a little while. And also you will hear the engine rev up a little bit while it's doing it. Okay, now that's measured, and you can see it's at the max there. So you go that line at the top, which is the max, and that one is the minimum. So if you were checking your oil, how much oil you have half through the year, and it was down here, you would want to top up a bit. And obviously if it was halfway, then that's okay. But that's how you can measure your oil. But obviously, since I just serviced the car, it should be at the max anyway. So thank you for watching.